welcome back. Thank you for being here. I am going to be completely honest with you. If I sound a little congested, I am so sorry, but the weather has changed where I live, and so now I am getting super congested. So just so you know, I am trying to work through not feeling 100%, but we are here and we are ready to talk about today's case. I am going to put out a warning as we are going to talk about rape and sexual assault in today's case. And I do like to give warnings so that if it is something that you don't want to hear about, then you can just move along. I just want to be respectful of everybody. I'm not trying to offend or trigger anyone by what I talk about. That being said, let's jump right on in to today's case. Murders happening on Lover's Lane were a huge phenomenon in movies when I was growing up. All the horrors seemed to have them. Maybe it was based off the fact that in a Lover's Lane scenario, the couples are otherwise engaged, making them quote-unquote easy targets. Maybe it was based on the times when lovers' lanes were truly a target for criminals of all kinds. To carry on with our criminals in costumes for October, we are going to talk about someone who preyed on these unsuspecting couples caught in lovers' embrace. In 1946, the people of Texarkana were living lives to the fullest and enjoying it as much as possible. This included young people of the area, and all that would quickly come crashing down and send the community into a panic when a man who was later dubbed the Phantom Killer began his reign of terror. This was also known as the Midnight Murders, and it would go on to have a movie made about it titled The Town That Dreaded Sundown. This movie was made in the 1970s, but it did take aspects from this case and use it to make the movie. The tagline in the movie was, in 1946, this man killed 5 people. Today, he still lurks the streets of Texarkana, Arkansas. Not sure that I would use that as a tagline for a movie, but it did give the horror and thrill to the movie that was coming out. Texarkana, where our case takes place today, is an area of neighboring cities. There is Texarkana, Texas, that is part of Bowie County and is about 100 miles from Dallas, Texas. And then there is its neighboring Texarkana, Arkansas, which is part of Miller County. This makes Texarkana unusual as it straddles the Texas and Arkansas border. In the 1940s, the community of Texarkana had a population of about 30,000 in total when you combine the Texas and Arkansas populations. And it said that it was a safe and budding community. It had been founded somewhere around 1860, making it a newer community to live in, and so people felt safe. Texarkana was what some would call the American dream. People would sit out on their front porches talking to their neighbors at night. They left their doors unlocked, and they had no fear of these events. The towns were founded due to the train lines that pushed through this area, and therefore it was a large hub for commerce, and it would bring in laborers, military, and all other kinds of people to the area due to the train lines. Our case truly began on February 22nd, 1946, when Jimmy Hollis, who was just 25 years old, took his girlfriend, Mary Larry, who was 19, out for a night on the town. This would be a typical date night for people in the 1940s, and it may have consisted of going to dinner, but it definitely consisted of going to the movies. When the movie was over, Jimmy and Mary decided to head to Lover's Lane for some alone time. It was said that this Lover's Lane spot was only 300 feet from the last house on the street, and the couple arrived there around 11:45 p.m. They parked their car, but unfortunately things would take a quick turn when just 10 minutes later, another car pulled up nearby. This is a lover's lane, so I'm not sure if they were preoccupied or if it was just the possibility that they didn't notice the other car approaching, or they just assumed it was another couple wanting to have some alone time on lover's lane. Either way, they weren't super concerned at that point, and the couple had no choice but to notice the car when a bright light blinded them through the window. Despite the light shining directly on them, they did notice that this man who approached had a gun. Jimmy quickly told the man that he had the wrong person, and the man responded, stating back, "I don't want to kill you, fellow, so do what I say." Mary and Jimmy were forced out of the car through the driver's side door. Jimmy was then ordered to take off his goddamn britches. These are direct quotes. At this point, the couple knew that they were in danger. Jimmy obliged the request to remove his pants, and as a result, the man struck Jimmy over the head twice with the butt of his gun. Mary was still unsure at this point of the intentions of this man, but believed that maybe he was just there to rob them. In this case, she decided to show him Jimmy's wallet and show him that they had no money. There was no reason for him to rob them. This act unfortunately would cost her, as in doing so, she was struck with a blunt object. Mary fell to the ground immediately due to the blow, but she, however, would not stay there. The attacker told her to get up in an attempt to save her life, because at this point she believed that Jimmy had been shot due to the sounds of his skull fracturing from the strikes of the gun against his head being so loud. She got up. She listened to what this man told her to do, and she attempted to save her life. Once she was off the ground, the attacker told her to run. She ran to a nearby ditch where she thought she could hide, but she was told to keep running by the attacker. While Mary was running, she came across an older car that was parked on the road. She stopped to look at it and noticed the car was empty. The attacker quickly caught up to her, but this time he changed his tactics a little. He asked her, "Why are you running?" When she replied and stated that she was running because he told her to. He told her that she was a liar. He knocked her down and he assaulted her with the barrel of his gun. Mary at this point had been through so much, and in her mind, Jimmy was dead. She had been assaulted by a gun, and a terrifying man had beat her twice. Somehow she got up again and mustered so much strength. She ran a half-mile to the closest house, where she woke up the family inside, begging them to call for the police. While Mary was finding the strength inside herself to survive, Jimmy was also coming to back at the car. He was able to flag down a passerby, and this person went to call the police for help as well. The police, I'm sure, worked as quickly as possible in the 1940s, but it did take 30 minutes for Bowie County Sheriff W.H. Bill Presley and 3 other officers to arrive at the scene. Unfortunately, once they arrived, the attacker had already left the area. But both Mary and Jimmy were taken to the hospital. Mary was kept overnight for observations of a minor head wound, and Jimmy was kept for several days for multiple skull fractures. The fact that in 1946, Jimmy was able to survive even with multiple skull fractures is such a testament to how much he wanted to survive. Medicine was not what it is today in 1946, and even today sometimes you cannot survive fractures of your skull. Thankfully, both Jimmy and Mary did survive the attack, and they were able to talk to the police. They both stated that the man was wearing a white cloth mask which resembled a pillowcase with eyes cut out. They also agreed that he was about 6 foot tall, but they did differ on the assailant's ethnicity. Jimmy stated that he believed that he was a very tan white man, and Mary stated that she believed he was a light-skinned African-American man, but both said that it was hard to tell by the flashlight in their eyes. The police would say that they believed that Jimmy and Mary actually may have known their assailant, and therefore they would continuously challenge the version of events. They believed that maybe Jimmy and Mary were trying to cover for their assailant because of knowing him. On March 24th, a 1941 Oldsmobile was found on Lover's Lane off Highway 67, about a mile outside of Texarkana. The car belonged to a military veteran named Robert Griffin, who was 29 years old. Robert was now making his living as a carpenter and a painter, and after seeing the car, the passerby approached and found Robert's body inside, along with his girlfriend, Polly Ann Moore. Polly was currently living with her cousin, and Polly and Richard had last been seen the night before at around 10 p.m. when they were having dinner with Richard's sister and her boyfriend. They left for the evening, and then they were seen the next morning at 9 a.m. when the car was discovered. So between leaving Richard's sister's dinner and when they were discovered, no one knows really what happened. The night of the 24th was unfortunately rainy, and once the police arrived, they found no prints were able to be recovered, unfortunately, due to the rain. However, they did find Richard's pockets were turned out and empty. Richard was found in the car between the front seats on his knees, with his head resting on his crossed hands. Richard and Polly had both been shot in the head. Richard had been shot twice while in the car, and Polly was found in the back seat laying face down on the seat. She had also been shot in the back of the head, but there was evidence suggesting that she may not have been shot in the car. She may have been shot on a blanket nearby, as there was pooled blood on the ground and a casing found in the blanket. If she was shot there, she was then moved to the car where she was found. One bullet and 2 cartridges from a .32 caliber rifle were found at the scene, but with the rain and the amount of onlookers in the area, no other evidence would be found. Some rumored that she may have been assaulted, but there was no evidence to support this rumor at that time. Though there were now 2 cases, you would think that people would start putting up their guard. They would be more aware. They would be paying more attention. But that didn't happen. No one took this seriously at this point, unfortunately, and they just assumed that they were isolated incidents. The seriousness of the situation would come to a head on Sunday, April 14th, when 17-year-old Paul Martin and 15-year-old Betty Jo Booker were found on the edge of North Park Road, which was another Lover's Lane area. Paul had picked up Betty at around 1:30 a.m. from the local VFW club in Texarkana, where she was attending a music performance. Betty played the saxophone, and so she was actually in the performance that evening. At 6:30 a.m., Paul's body was found laying on its side on the North Park Road. Police discovered that he had been shot 4 times. He had been shot through the nose, through the ribs from behind, and through the back of his neck. And then he had also been shot through his right hand. They also discovered that there was blood on the other side of the road, and a search party was started to find Betty. At 11:30 a.m., they found Betty's body. Her body had been posed behind a tree about 2 miles from Paul. She was laying on her back, fully clothed, with her right hand positioned in the pocket of her overcoat. She had been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the face. Betty was not all that was found during the search, though. Paul's car was found in this search, and it was located about 3 miles from Betty and 1.5 miles from Paul. The keys were still in the ignition, and police investigated. As they investigated, they did test for assault of Betty, even though she was fully clothed. They did find proof of rape for Betty, but Paul tested negative for any sexual activity. They said that even with the evidence, they could not definitively say that she was raped. However, they believed that she was. The Texas Rangers had come in, and with them, along with the local police, they said that they were not sure who was shot first. They do know that both victims put up a fight to try to survive. Friends of the pair stated that they had no enemies that anyone knew of, and they would never fight between the two of them. Prints and bullet casings were taken from the scene. The casings matched the shots fired to kill Richard and Polly, and there were some unidentified prints, including on the steering wheel of the car. The bullets, possible rape, and latent prints were not shared with the media. Betty's saxophone had gone missing during the murder, and it was found about 6 months later, close to where the murders took place. Not sure why, if it was close to where the murders took place, it took them 6 months to find, but it's a saxophone. I'm not sure that they were truly looking for it at the time either. The chaos caused the newly dubbed Phantom Killer was not yet finished. On May 3rd at around 9 p.m., in the safety of their own home on a 500-acre farm that was 10 miles northeast of Texarkana, 37-year-old farmer and welder Virgil Stark and his wife, 36-year-old Katie, were attacked. Virgil and Katie had settled in for the night, and Virgil was reading the Texarkana Gazette while sitting in his armchair in front of a large double window. Out of nowhere, Virgil was shot through the closed window. 2 shots had come through the glass and killed Virgil immediately. Katie quickly came running into the room where Virgil was slumped over. She ran toward the crank phone to try to call the police, but before the call could even ring twice, 2 more shots rang out through the same window. She was shot in the face, causing her to lose her footing, but she quickly regained it. With blood running down her face and into her eyes, she still tried to get to the pistol that they kept in their home. Unfortunately, due to the blood blinding her, she was unable to find the gun. While searching, she could hear the attacker coming into the home by the back door. Katie quickly ran out the front door barefoot and ran as quickly as possible to her sister and brother-in-law's house across the street. When she arrived there, they weren't home, and she had to run even more to the neighbor, A.V. Prater's house. By the time she got there, she was panting as she had been running for her life. Prater grabbed his shotgun and shot it into the air to get the attention of his other neighbor, Elmer Taylor. The Prater family and the Taylor family gathered Katie and they headed to the local hospital. After getting to the hospital, police did interview her, but she was headed to the OR to get care for the bullet wound to her face. Rumors had started that Virgil had heard a car come up several days in a row prior to the shooting and that he may have feared for his life. But days later, when Katie could be interviewed again, she discounted these rumors. She stated they were just not true. Police shut down the road around the Stark home and questioned anyone who was in the area at the time. This case became huge, and they installed teletype machine at the local police station so they could talk to other police stations about the crimes that were happening. Police tried to hire teenagers to set up decoys in Lovers Lane's areas to try to catch the attacker, and they even put officers undercover with real partners as well as mannequins. There was a theory that the attacker was a sex maniac, but it was not founded. By the time the Stark attacks happened, there was already a reward out for the capture or information leading to the capture of the attacker, However, after the Starks, that reward would be raised to $10,000. The Starks murder, however, was quickly removed from the other murders as a different murder weapon was used, and another possible victim was found. However, this victim was stabbed and placed on nearby train tracks to, I'm assuming, be run over by the train. Some believe that this may have been the attacker himself who committed suicide, and some believe it was another victim of his, and some believe there was just no link at all. As the police investigated, 400 suspects were found. They had 9 false confessions. 3 people were held due to suspicious blood on their clothing, but all 3 of these men were released. The prime suspects, and there were a lot of them, were as follows. The primary suspect was Yule Sweeney. Yule was 29, and he had been known to have a criminal past for stealing cars and counterfeiting. He was under investigation for car theft already due to a car that was stolen on the night of Richard and Polly's murder being retrieved by his wife, Peggy. After being arrested, Yule would suggest more serious crimes he allegedly committed, stating, "You got me for more than stealing cars." He asked one of the agents who first arrested him if he would have been given the electric chair for what he had done. When Peggy discovered her husband was held for murder, she exclaimed, "How did they find out?" Peggy did confess that Yule was the Phantom Killer. Peggy's confessions, such as the location of victims' possessions, where she said Yule had discarded them, and things like that, were all considered circumstantial. However, they were very damning in that event. It was the most critical part of the case, and they tried to use it to arrest him. However, Peggy would recant her confession, and she was considered an unreliable witness. She could not be compelled to testify against her husband, and Peggy's family would actually come out and say that they believed that he was the Phantom Killer. Police found a khaki work shirt in the suspect's room, and this laundry was marked with the word Stark, which could be read under blacklight. I mean, I guess he could have stolen it somewhere else, but it just seems suspicious. Slag was found, which matched samples found in Virgil Stark's welding shop, and Peggy took officers near the spot where Paul Martin's car was found, claiming of having been there. So all of this was very damning for Yule. However, again, Peggy did recant her confessions and everything that she showed them, therefore making it null and void. The officers found a woman's heel print in the area around Paul's car, so it could have been that they were there. Yule Sweeney also owned a .32 caliber Colt automatic, which had previously been sold at a craps game, and the police spent 6 months trying to confirm Peggy's confession. But while doing so, they found Yule's prints did not match any of the prints found at the scenes. Peggy again recanted her confession and said that they had been sleeping under a bridge in their car the night of Paul and Betty's murder. Police removed him as a suspect, and they felt that Peggy was just lying. Not sure why you would lie about your husband being a murderer, but neither here nor there. Another suspect was Henry Duty Tennyson. Henry confessed to the murder of Paul and Betty and Virgil Stark while he was in prison on unrelated charges. He had made the confession just before ingesting rat poison and committing suicide at 18 years old. There was no fingerprint match to the prints found at the scene, and he played trombone in the same high school band that Betty played her saxophone. They were not friends, and I'm not even sure if they knew who each other was. When investigating further, police were given an alibi for the night of Virgil's murder, and they were told not only did he not know how to drive until 1947, He also did not own a gun or know how to shoot one, therefore removing him as a suspect. Ralph Ballman was another suspect, and he turned himself in to the LAPD in May of 1946. He was a 21-year-old ex-Army Air Force machine gunner, and he claimed to have awoken from a fugue state of several weeks on the day of the Starks murder, with his rifle missing and no idea what was happening. He said he heard about a suspect matching his description and hitchhiked to Los Angeles, feeling like he was running from murder. On May 23rd, he told Los Angeles police that he thought he might be the Phantom. "I'm my own suspect," he said. Police arrested him, but the police stated that several parts of his story had little basis in fact. They also stated that he had been discharged from the Air Force for being psychoneurotic. He had previously confessed to killing 3 people in Texarkana in a period of 3 days, which did not match the timeline of killings. In May of 1946, at least 6 other people were briefly considered as suspects in the Phantom case. Earl McSpadden, the man found on the Kansas City Southern Railroad, was considered a suspect. Emmett Daniels, a World War II veteran who was indicted for his involvement in the Lepach massacre in Germany in 1945, but the charges were dropped. The massacre involved killing around 24 German prisoners of war and the mass rape of about 20 women. Daniel was alleged to have raped 2 women and penetrated another one with the barrel of his gun. This seems very familiar, similarly to what the Phantom would have done. He also brutally beat to death 3 German soldiers and shot 2 more. Daniel was also alleged to have raped and strangled a woman to death in Germany during the final days of the Battle of Berlin. So he was all around not a great guy, and therefore that's why he was on their radar. A lot of his crimes had mirrored some of what the Phantom had done. An escaped German prisoner of war, although never recaptured, may have possibly been a suspect. A hitchhiker whom threatened to shoot a motorist in Kilgore, Texas, confessed to the killings. Captain Gonzalez was skeptical regarding the reasonabilities of this, and the same hitchhiker was linked to the case of a peeping Tom who had scared a resident in Lufkin, Texas. It is impossible to determine if it was the same person because it's 1946. They don't really have a lot of the same things that we have, but it's a possibility. In Intaka County, Oklahoma, a man threatened a woman of killing and raping her. He also boasted to have already killed 3 or 4 people, and he was arrested in this case, although it was later deemed that he could not have possibly been the Phantom. The last one was a black man whose tire tracks were found near the Martin Booker crime scene. He was arrested and he failed a polygraph test, but this was later cleared through the use of hypnosis. That was an evidence gathering tool in that time. The Phantom Killer was never identified, but his crimes did end. Not sure why they ended. There's always the hypothesis that maybe he went to jail for a different crime, maybe he died, maybe he went somewhere else, but they ended, and I'm thankful for that. This man wore a white pillowcase type clothing to cover his face while he preyed on unsuspecting couples. Too many lives were taken for no real reason at all. We know nothing about the psychology of the case and why he possibly would have done this. This case is now a cold case, and we may never have the answers for the destruction that this man caused in so many lives. That's my case for today. I hope you all have a great day. I know this one was quite intense, but it was one that was kind of weighing on me to know that this man did all of this and was never caught, and there was some circumstantial evidence. is kind of strange, but it also was 1946 where evidence was just not as easily used as it is today. I hope you all have a great day. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week with another Cozy Crime Time. You all have a great day, drink your water, and stay safe. Bye!